The initial plan for this car was to build a vehicle that was physically bigger than the existing CTS in the Cadillac portfolio, make it about 8 inches bigger, but to retain the driving dynamics and the vehicle characteristics that are in an ATS and a CTS. You probably know those cars. They're great dynamic vehicles with awesome ride and handling. The problem being is if you make a car that's so much longer than that, to retain that vehicle driving characteristic is a tough ask. So we needed to do this. This was one aim. The second aim was to get an NVH acoustic attenuation in the car that is world class, make the car extremely quiet. So to do that, we took an approach that was somewhat unique to the industry with this mixed material body in white approach. To achieve the ride and handling, we needed to get an extremely good torsional rigidity in the car. So we've ended up here taking an approach that's very heavy on aluminum die-cast panels. There's 13 high-pressure die-cast panels in the car. They stretch throughout the underbody. You can see one here in the shock tower. You can see another one here in the front body hinge pillar. These castings allow us to consolidate parts and eradicate any sort of structural movement in the car. In fact, this particular part that runs from here to here to here takes 35 parts and consolidates it to one single part. So any inherent movement that may have existed between those 35 parts now gets consolidated to one. It's a very rigid part, and then these ribs that exist throughout the structure allow us to optimize and tailor those structure to manage rigidity in a very precise way. This particular high pressure die cast rail is called our rear longitudinal rail, and what you can see here, it's a very large casting, but you can see that areas that we've tried to optimize for stiffness, through here you can notice the ribbing is very dense. It's got deep ribbing and it's fairly small in the square shapes there. You can see the same thing under here for a lot more dense casting with smaller ribbing. But then you'll also notice that through here, where we don't need the structural stiffness as much, that ribbing gets a lot larger. So you can see from this large part here that around the rear cradle mounts, we've got a lot of structure in the areas where we need it, and the areas where we don't need it, you can thin out that and optimize for mass. In a normal car that would have been either all aluminum or all steel, you would typically have to choose one material gauge and make that flow through the whole body. So you don't get to optimize in individual locations for stiffness and mass, both in the same part. So it's a very unique way to approach that vehicle. The easy way for us to have manufactured this car would have been either all steel or all aluminum with these castings, but that would have only achieved one of our intents. It would have achieved a great ride and handling balance by achieving this stiff architecture. But we also wanted great NVH performance. So you'll notice in this car that these panels in here are actually steel, all the press panels, and we have a steel front of dash, front floor, rear floor, and seat back upper. What we learned through CAE analysis and through physical experiment is if we take a thin sheet steel with a small amount of acoustics, we get better mass and acoustic performance than taking a thin sheet of alloy compared to a much larger piece of acoustics. So we can get more mass out of the car and perform better if we actually do steel plus acoustics versus aluminum. But that creates an inherent problem that you've got structure that wants to be alloy, castings that want to be alloy for stiffness, but an occupant cell that wants to be steel. So then joining these is a problem. So you'll notice throughout the car here, it doesn't just want to be a steel occupant cell. These cross-car bars, the 2 and 3 bar, and then this large die casting that runs through the center of the car, you can see the 3 bars there. These parts are all aluminum and the parts around them are all steel. So we end up with a structure to be perfectly optimized for NVH and for torsional rigidity to give that great ride and handling balance. Wants to be aluminum, a very mixed combination of aluminum and sheet steel, and then aluminum at the back. So to do that, we've really stretched our manufacturing team, and they've come through with some great enablers for us. We have 5 joining techniques that are available on our car that help us to do this mixed material approach and really let each panel select what it wants to be for the optimum amount of mass, acoustics, and structural elements of the car. And you'll notice here we have our GM patented aluminum spot welding technology that we have here. There's more than 3,000 spot welds throughout the vehicle of this aluminum to aluminum. But depending on access from the manufacturing team, sometimes you can't use this particular method of alloy spot welding, so you move to something like a flow drill screwed rivet, which is typical for a one-sided access. We also have traditional rivets on the inside of the car here, and then we also have MIG welding and laser welding as well. So those 5 joining techniques combine to let us optimize the car and work out how to balance for NVH, stiffness and mass. So the outcome of all of that, this particular car is about 6 inches bigger than a BMW 5 Series, about 7 and a bit inches bigger than an Audi A6, and almost 9 inches bigger than a Mercedes E-Class. But the body structure is lighter than all of those cars, despite the larger size. And the torsional stiffness of this car, from our benchmarking, is well and truly exceeds all of those cars. So that allows us, for our customers, to provide the larger car, the stiffer car, the lighter car, all to produce that great ride and handling with awesome NVH attenuation. The engine in this particular car is a 3-litre twin-turbo, 400 horsepower, 400 newton metre, 133 horsepower per litre power cube, which is the 133 horsepower per litre is a beautiful standard. It's above those 3 competitors I just mentioned. Yep. All of that engine passes through here into our GM 8-speed transmission. That passes through into this new 2-gear T-case, which is our all-wheel drive system. There's 2 beveloid gears there that take that energy and push it back up the all-wheel drive system into the front drive unit and out to the corners of the wheel. That system is capable up to 1,300 newton meters of torque. So that's a lot of torque to be able to pass to the front wheel. So what we've done to allow customers to really optimize their car for their driving situation, we have 3 modes that a customer can choose. We have touring mode, which is your standard. We have snow and ice mode, and we have sports mode. So if somebody wants to do spirited driving in sports mode, that will take it's a wet clutch all-wheel drive system, and it will put 80% of the torque to the rear wheels and 20% to the front, but it's continuously variable so that the car will react to however the customer wants to drive, but giving it very much a rear-wheel drive feeling in the car to get the most out of their vehicle. Although it will vary around that 80-20. Yep. Taking the converse approach, if you press the snow and ice condition, where you want traction more evenly spread across the vehicle, that T-case has the ability to push 50% of the torque to the front of the car, so we split 50-50, and we will vary around that according to the conditions. But where it really gets great is if you happen to get in a condition where your front wheels have traction and your rear wheels have lost complete traction off the car, we get to put all 1,300 newton meters of that force of that torque up to the front of the car to get ourselves out of some tricky situations. And we've done quite extensive testing in the snow and ice conditions in that driving mode. In fact, I was up at a place called Kinross where we do some testing, and we tested this car against our competition. It's a very capable snow, ice and all-wheel drive system in that car. And then of course the normal mode is the touring mode, which would be a 60-40 split, completely variable according to driving conditions. We're continually analysing the portfolio. For now, we think this is a really good mix. We know that customers desire a great ride and handling car, but they also desire the slightly bigger car with a little extra room. So we think this is a really unique proposition between the smaller 5 Series Audi A6 E-Class and the larger 7 Series Audi A8 and the S-Class. But we are looking, and we have announced today that we are going to do 8 new products in areas that we don't compete right now, and we are looking in the future to do a car that's a little bigger than this with the same methodology to do a car in the larger segment, maybe up towards that side. So no specific date worked out yet, but we are looking at that. This methodology would work beautifully in that bigger car. It would give us the same result from a stiffness, ride and handling characteristics and NVH performance, which we know would be great in that segment as well. When we get to Shanghai in 3 weeks, we do have an announcement coming on a very green power cube that we'll talk about more in Shanghai. But it's very exciting as well.